Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. So, just a few words from me before we start proper. So, morning, I'm Debbie. I'm the Chief Exec here at the Wildlife Trust. And lovely to see lots of familiar faces in the room, and hopefully a few new people as well. If this is your first AGM or you haven't been for a long while, can you just pop your hand up so I know? Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant. Oh, well, thank you very much. It's nice to see you, and hopefully we can have a chat later on in the coffee break. I just wanted to say another big thank you for Megan for your second year of being our president and all the amazing things you've helped us with this year. So there's a few pictures up there. I don't know if you can see them. So Megan joined us. We had a big march back in June called the Restore Nature Now March, which was the largest ever gathering in central London of people that care about the wildlife and the nature and climate emergency. Incredible turnout, and Megan and Chris were there, and they came about a week before that to do a banner making event, as there's a few pictures there, and I have to say it was just brilliant, and the kids just absolutely loved having you there, Megan. And it was a really fun day, colouring, pretending we were like 6 again. It was really nice. So that was fantastic. And Megan also joined us at our Seeing is Believing event, which we held back in May, and I'm going to talk about that later, and we've got a short film, actually, of that thing to show you later on. And Megan has supported us during the year with online messages, helping with things like the Chalk Streams campaign, promoting membership, and promoting today's AGM. And I'd like to think that the record membership numbers and the record attendance at the AGM are all down to you, Megan. So thank you for that. So that is me done, and I'll hand over to Megan as our president to open the formal proceedings. Thank you.
So thank you very much, and welcome to the 63rd Annual General Meeting for the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust. As Debbie said, it is my second year as president, and in all honesty, it has been such a fun, interesting, fascinating time, and it is genuinely, I'm so proud to be part of this trust in particular, and it's a real honour to be here doing the AGM. It is only my second AGM, so do bear with me. I will hold my hands up and say that. But the state of nature, of course, is something that we're all incredibly passionate about. You're all in this room listening to us talk about the details of a very important charity, because I hope you care just as much as we do. Very recently, the State of Nature report came out. I don't know if anybody saw that, State of Nature report. So when it came out in 2022, it detailed the loss of biodiversity by about 69% since the 1970s. That number has now increased to 73% loss of global biodiversity in the last 50 years, which is something that is terrifying, right, in equal measure. Absolutely frightening. I don't think anyone could look at that statistic, no matter how many dreadful, awful statistics we see, and not feel a little bit impacted by it. But I'm quite interested about the psychology when we look at those sort of statistics and when we talk and look about climate change. And I've done a bit of research and digging into kind of the sociology of how we tackle these big issues. And every single day, every person makes over 5,000 decisions. Everything from what time to get up in the morning, what clothes you're going to wear, what you're going to have for breakfast. You know, are you going to walk downstairs at 7 o'clock or 7:05? Minute decisions that we think, often we don't even think about making, but yet subconsciously we're making them. And then when it comes to the bigger issues, you know, the things that could impact our life, it takes a little bit more energy, it takes a little bit more time. But looking at the brain when people think about climate change and biodiversity loss, it changes massively throughout the generations. But ultimately, it is an issue so big that our brains psychologically, physiologically cannot comprehend just how huge it is, which is often why we push it down, because we can't understand its enormity. We can't understand all the time about how us as an individual can really make that impact. So we kind of carry on, we try and do what we can, but, you know, ultimately it is something which, you know, a lot of people, especially in recent times, do and does every day struggle with. I certainly do. But I then look to rooms like this, and this is where I see the hope. And I honestly love one of my favourite sayings, which is think global, act local. And I think that's what these wildlife trusts do, certainly what Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust does. Every time I go out to one of their events, I feel inspired, I feel empowered by the work that they're doing, looking at the local scale, because that's really where we start to make a difference. And ultimately, if we all do something different, if we all take part in a project, if we all support the project, supporting trusts like this, and we do something different tomorrow from what we did yesterday, then we are winning. And as Debbie said earlier on, we had the Restore Nature Now March, and it was an amazing day in London. Did anybody go? Yeah, lots of people from the trust, hands right up. There's a few people in the audience. It was such a fun day. I always call days like that festivals of purpose, because they've got that festival vibe, everyone coming together with that shared commonality of wanting to address something that's important to them, but get people to act for it. And we managed to convince over 70 wildlife charities to come along and stand side by side, different organisations with different ethoses. And I'll tell you now, I'll let you in on a little secret. There are a lot of Zoom meetings to get everyone to come and stand side by side, and it was a big effort. And the person who was in charge of all of that, I think, is quite, well, I don't know, we probably will do it again, but we need a little bit of time to recover from those meetings, first of all. But I want to absolutely big up the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust here, because they were the biggest supporters right from the offset. They were there at every meeting, supporting us in this march, encouraging all the other wildlife trusts to get on and help as well. And you know, it makes me really proud to be, you know, part of this organisation in particular. And I hope as members that you feel equally as proud, because I can say that behind the scenes they really put their money where their mouth is, and really kind of act on everything that I think we all feel passionate about. So I'm very grateful to them, and I'm very grateful to you all being here today. So I guess we should get on with the important stuff, and I'll stop rambling, because I do that too much. But yes, so I'll introduce you to our AGM panel. We've heard from Debbie Tan, of course, our Chief Exec. Shortly, I will invite David Jordan, the Chairman of the Trust, to give his report, followed by Richard Green Wilkinson, our Treasurer, who will follow with the finances. Very important stuff, of course. And in attendance, we've got Natasha Thorlow, we've got our Director of Finance and Resources, and Clive Chatters, our Company Secretary. Our next item of the report is from David Jordan, the Chairman of Trustees. Once David has given his report, I'll ask Richard Green Wilkinson, our Treasurer, to give his annual financial report, after which I invite any questions from members. So please welcome David.
It's a real pleasure to be here as Chairman of the Trust and to report on the year in question, 2023-24. So our annual report, what I'd like to do is just to start by picking out a handful of figures from the annual report. For the first time ever, our income has exceeded £10 million. In fact, it was closer to £12 million, which is absolutely amazing. This slide, by the way, is a direct lift from the annual report, and if you haven't got your copy of the annual report, then please do avail yourself of one or look online. So it's the first time we've been through 10 million, and Richard will follow me with a presentation which covers in much more detail just how crucial that is, of course, because it underpins everything we do. We now own and manage over 12,000 acres. I'm using the old figure because it's a bigger one, not hectares. But of course, what I love about the land that we own is that we have pretty much complete control, which is wonderful, and over, in theory, at least perpetuity. But let's not forget also the area of land that we influence for the benefit of nature, which is huge and fantastic and crucial and growing. We now have 140 staff. I should have said, by the way, that 10 years ago, our income was 4 million, now nearly 12. Our staff now, 140, 10 years ago, 89. And they all do work which I think we as members support and value hugely. And it's worth saying also that our volunteer force effectively adds another 10% to our workforce. So thank you very much indeed for that. Just focusing again on some major successes, Little Duxmore, one of our more recent acquisitions on the island, is a powerhouse of nature now. It's quite amazing what's happened in the short period since we stopped traditional agriculture. There's been an explosion of wildlife. I'm not going to go through the figures, you can see them here. But underpinning all of this, of course, is a huge improvement in soil quality and indeed water quality. And we see this also at the other major site on the island that we acquired pretty much at the same time, Nunwell Farm, plus all the ripple effect that we're seeing and the influence too. But one of the really important elements of this is that we're providing a significant amount of employment on these two sites too. So the benefits go economically as well as environmentally. 2 land acquisitions last year, the extension to Swampond Copse and Kidnock Meadows. Both of these, again, on the island, continuing a fantastic pattern of acquisition on the island. And I think it's fair to say that legacies are the backbone of our acquisitions. And these two have helped to join up, in many cases, the landscape now, which is really starting to become very significant indeed for wildlife. We talked a couple of years ago about the seagrass work that we were doing, some of the benefits, some of the successes, some of the challenges. Now that work has continued apace, and it's broadened into a huge Solent Seascape project, which is a partnership between ourselves, the Blue Marine Foundation, RSPB, Portsmouth University and others. And it really is motoring in this hugely important aspect of our marine environment. Seagrass, as you know, has been depleted right around the UK coastline. Major efforts going on to restore it because it's crucial for wildlife. It's a nursery for young fish. It's a habitat for adult animals too. And it sequesters carbon, which is of huge importance. So this again has gone from strength to strength. Our Chalk Stream project has been enormously successful, has generated a huge amount of interest and support. Now, we look after, with others, some of the best chalk streams in the world. Of course, England has a huge proportion of the world's chalk, and so it's crucial that we nurture these. None of our chalk streams are in the health that they should be. They're good, but they need to be much better. There's been a huge focus recently in the media about the performance of the water companies. Now, it is important to recognise that the water companies need to up their game because they're not doing what they need to do. I have personal experience of this, as you may know, because I was Director of Operations for the Environment Agency until 10 years ago. I can tell you that although in some cases water quality associated with sewage has slipped back, in the majority of cases it hasn't. What we need is the next step, the next level of investment. But alongside this, it's crucial to recognise that the most pollution in our waters actually comes from other sources. And we need to face this head on because unless we do, we won't address it. And one of the biggest sources of pollution into our rivers is agriculture. And we are encouraging and working with some fantastic farmers and trying to make sure that everyone else comes up to the level of the best, because that will help to transform that environment. Farlington Marsh is another great success, but also a challenge because the seawall is very fragile and sea level rise, of course, will create significant challenges in this environment. It is one of the jewels in our crown. Many, probably all of you will know it. It is under some threat, but I am very glad that the Environment Agency will work to repair the seawall, and I hope that that habitat will be sustained for the foreseeable future on the back of that. Overall, then, the Trust is, I think, in very good health. As always, I'll use the formal words. We are a going concern. That is the important wording that is used by the Charity Commission, something that the trustees will look at very carefully every year. Challenges undoubtedly remain. They will remain throughout my lifetime, and they are the challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, bioabundance loss, but also locally competition for land, which is significant, and, I think, potential threats of changes to government policy. We need to cling on to the good government policies that we have, including things like biodiversity net gain, because unless we make those work, and they have potential to deliver a great deal, the loss of them, I think, will be a huge lost opportunity. But let me finish on one of the greatest successes of the year, in my view. In my career, I've seen many awards, and I think it's fair to say that I've never seen one which is better deserved than this. So please join me in congratulating Debbie for her Emmy.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everyone. The financial report for the year ended 31st March 2024. Well, how did we do? As David has already said, £11.7 million of income, £7.2 million of expenditure, and a surplus of £4.9 million. You may see a slight discrepancy there because that includes investment gains of £400,000. So I'd like to first focus on the legacy income. So looking at the income, £1.4 million. Well, that's actually £1.49 million, but that is amazing, fantastic, brilliant. First of all, the reasons why that's so good. There's no little cost attached, so part of our surplus just falls straight into our surplus. It's not budgeted for, so it can be used to bolster our work now and in the future, and adds to our net worth and available funds. So we are so grateful for members and supporters remembering us in their wills. Really good. And from these funds, the 1.49 million, more than £900,000 will be set aside for future land purchases and other transformational projects. The remainder will help to fund essential day-to-day work of the Trust, such as managing nature reserves, working with local communities, and all the vital background work that teams of Beechcroft. So that's really helpful. Now the next one is our largest tranche of income, £4.2 million. And as you may know, what you've heard from in the past, we buy land that's been intensively farmed and we rewild it and consequently obtain nitrate credits, which are then sold to builders who need those nitrate credits in order to build the houses and sell them. So that's been really good. It's a tremendous achievement, £4.2 million. But as I would say as a treasurer, it's not quite as good as it seems. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. We have to set aside between 40 and 45% of this money to maintain the rewilded land long-term future. So that's a lot. That's a big chunk. And that leaves us a balance. And again, there's another 40 to 45% needs to be used to repay the loans we've taken out to buy the land. So as you see, you'll have worked out, we probably end up with, in our general funds, something like 10 to 20%. And I say the percentages vary because it depends how much we sell our nitrate credits for. So, but the other thing is not only do we have that extra money coming into our funds, but of course it means we still have the rewilded land with all the wildlife and environmental benefits. So actually that's pretty good. It's a win-win situation. Now, the next tranche of income I'm going to talk about is the donations. £605,000. That is incredible. Most generous of you, the members and supporters, and much like legacies, apart from paying our fundraising costs, falls into our surplus. So that's really great. Membership subscriptions come to 1.43 million and provides an assured income and security towards covering our fixed costs. And our trading company, Arcadia Ecology, helped too, producing a profit of £52,000. One of the benefits of having several good years and generous members and supporters is the investment funds and cash. And we have 515,000 of investment income and gains. And the income for the year was £100,000. And of course, high interest rates helped. But yeah, it helps to have a good market, but we are, that's really good. That of course falls straight into our surplus as well. I should also add that of our income, the £11.7 million, there's 2.32 million is restricted fund. So it's restricted fund income. And at this point, I should explain to you what the funds represent, because I'll say it every time. Sorry about that, but I should say we have three main funds. Apart from the very small endowment fund, we have three main funds. So there's a restricted fund, where some money is provided to us for a particular purpose, specific purpose, and must be used for that purpose. So for example, get donations. They've come in on the back of a request for donations towards buying land. That money is restricted, must be used to buy the land. Okay, so that's restricted fund. And indeed, on the restricted fund, if it's a surplus, and we've got an £800,000 surplus this year, it just means it's just a matter of timing, really. Obviously, we're going to spend that money eventually. Unrestricted funds, on the other hand, there are two funds. So there's a designated fund and a general fund. And the designated fund is where we, the trustees, set aside money for a specific purpose. So, for example, I mentioned about the setting aside money a huge chunk of money to maintain the rewilded land. That would be in a designated fund. And then the rest is unrestricted general fund, where money is available to us to achieve our charitable objects. So those are the three funds. Important that you all understand that. We spent, as I say, 1.5 million of the restricted funds this year, leaving 800,000 of surplus. So what about our expenditure? Well, just in broad terms, 7.25 million pounds of expenditure, of which, as I said, 1.5 million was restricted. So 5.7 million is left, and that's broadly conservation, education, engagement, where most of the money goes, and membership as well. So it's just to give you a broad idea of where it goes. So what about our balance sheet? Well, as you can imagine, with a good year and a big surplus, we've now got over 24 million pounds of assets. This includes investments of cash of about 11.5 million pounds. Income is the green line, expenditure is the red line. So I think I said last year that I like this graph. I like it even more now. It's very good. That gap is the surplus, and it's getting wider. But, of course, and there's always a but where the Treasurer is talking, there's a lot of uncertainty about it at the moment. New government, what will nitrate mitigation look like in the future? What about biodiversity net gain? Competitive markets out there. So it's not going to be so easy. It's obviously a warning that I would have to give you. But with our excellent leadership from our directors and managers and their teams, and with your help, I'm confident we will manage this and other challenges. So, moving on to the summary. The annual report and accounts were prepared in accordance with the accounting rules for a charitable company. The charity's SORP. They're audited by Safri's. Thank you, Safri's. Clean audit report. We're happy with them. They're happy with us. That's good. Total assets of 24.4 million, of which 13 million is land and buildings. Surplus for the year of 4.9 million pounds, including unrealised gain of investment gain of 417,000 pounds. So we have assets of 18 million in unrestricted funds, 6.4 million pounds in restricted funds, and a very small endowment fund. Thank you.
Now I'm going to hand over to David for some closing remarks for the first half of the morning.
Thank you very much for presiding over our AGM. It's been wonderful to have you with us again. Obviously, I'm delighted at the election of our new trustees. It also, of course, means that we're saying goodbye to two of our trustees who have worked with us for three-year terms, and so are standing down under the appropriate part of our articles. Those two are Malcolm Sonics and Leslie Chin. Both of them are here today. We actually started together on council, and I have to say it's been a massive pleasure working with them. Their advice has been superb, Obviously, you just don't see that, but the way in which they've addressed their term as trustees, and the way in which Malcolm, for example, has helped to ensure that our focus is as much on the Isle of Wight as it is on Hampshire, has been superb. And they've become personal friends as part of that process, and I'd like to extend my personal thanks and indeed that of the organisation, and I hope of you as members, for the term that they've served. Thank you. Thank you also for doing me the honour of re-electing me. As you will have gathered, it's my intention, at the request of Council, to serve for another year. We have just gone live with the recruitment process to appoint my successor. It is on our website. It looks so good, I am thinking of applying myself. So please do have a look at that and spread the word. Thank you very much indeed.